If you are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button because today's story is going to take you deeper into Britain's Got Talent than ever before. We are about to dive into one of the most emotional, unforgettable, and history-defining auditions the show has ever seen. This is not just about a performance, this is about a moment that changed an entire season, moved millions to tears, and gave Simon Cowell one of the greatest golden buzzer moments of his entire career. And at the center of this unbelievable journey is a young girl named Melody, whose voice didn't just echo through the theater, it echoed through the hearts of everyone listening. What you're about to hear is the full story behind Simon's best golden buzzer ever, the moment Melody brought Britain's Got Talent to tears. The night began like every other BGT audition day. The arena was packed, the judges were ready, and the audience buzzed with excitement. But behind the stage, one girl stood completely still. Melody. Just 14 years old. Hands shaking. Eyes slightly red. She wasn't dressed in anything flashy. She wasn't accompanied by a team or a coach or even a family member pushing her forward. She walked in quietly with the kind of presence that made producers pause. Even before she spoke a single word, there was something different about her. Something delicate. Something honest. Something that felt like a story waiting to unfold. When she stepped onto the stage, the crowd immediately noticed her nervousness. The lights were bright, and the atmosphere held that mix of tension and possibility that only a show like BGT can create. Amanda leaned forward, sensing the girl's fear. Alesha offered a small, warm smile. Bruno looked excited but concerned. And Simon watched her with that analytical stare he gives when he senses a moment could go either way. He asked her name. She whispered it. Melody. A name that would soon become literal magic. He asked her age. She answered quietly. 14. He asked what brought her there, and her reply was one that immediately tightened the atmosphere in the room. She said she wanted to sing because singing was the one thing that had never left her. She said life had been difficult. She said the last few years felt like waves crashing too hard, too often. She didn't describe those hardships in detail, but you could hear 1,000 unspoken stories hanging in the silence between her words. Simon asked who she came with. She looked down to the floor for a moment and said she came alone. That single answer created a ripple in the audience. People sat up straighter. Some placed hands over their hearts. And without Simon needing to say another word, he nodded gently, almost fatherly, encouraging her to begin whenever she felt ready. And then, the world held its breath. The music started soft. A single piano note, echoing through the auditorium like the beginning of a memory. Melody took one slow breath and opened her mouth, and what came out didn't sound like it belonged to a nervous teenager. It didn't even sound like it belonged to someone human. It sounded like pain transformed into beauty. Like a cry turned into a symphony. Her voice was raw, haunting, fragile but powerful. The kind of voice that makes you stop everything and listen. The kind of voice that makes the air feel heavy. The first line alone brought tears to people's eyes. Her tone carried emotion like it was stitched into every syllable. It felt like she wasn't just singing a song, she was telling her entire life story through the cracks, the breaths, the vibrato. No theatrics. No choreography. Just truth. Pure, transparent truth. Halfway through the first verse, Amanda wiped her eye. A woman in the audience covered her mouth. A man shook his head in disbelief. A teenager in the back whispered, "She's not normal. She's something else." But the person affected most, the one visibly breaking, was Simon. He stared at Melody not like a judge, but like someone witnessing something sacred. His expression shifted from curiosity, to admiration, to shock, to something deeply emotional. It was rare to see Simon Cowell emotional. But as Melody's voice reached the first chorus, Simon placed a hand over his mouth. He looked down for a moment, swallowed, then looked back up with watery eyes. This wasn't just good. This wasn't just impressive. This was life-changing. This was once in a generation. And then came the note. The note that would become the most replayed moment of the entire season. Melody leaned into the microphone, closed her eyes, and unleashed a high, trembling, heartbreaking note that didn't sound like singing, it sounded like a confession. Every person in the arena felt it. It was the kind of note that breaks something inside you, then heals it at the same time. People cried openly. Mothers hugged daughters. Friends grabbed each other's hands. Even the backstage crew stepped closer to the monitors with tears running down their faces. By the time she reached the second verse, her voice grew steadier. Stronger. Like she had found her courage mid-song. Like singing wasn't just something she was doing, it was something pulling her out of darkness. And the lyrics, though written by someone else, felt like they belonged to her story. Each word was delivered like it held a memory. Each breath sounded like it carried a secret. As Melody approached the final chorus, the crowd began rising to their feet slowly, one section at a time, until the entire auditorium was standing. A standing ovation before she even finished the song. Alesha placed both hands over her heart. Bruno looked like he was going to leap onto the table. Amanda whispered, "Oh my God." And Simon looked like he had made a decision a long time before the song ended. Melody hit the final note with a trembling intensity that no one expected. Her voice cracked, not because she was losing control, but because the emotion was too real, too overwhelming, too human. And when she finished, there was no sound. No cheering. No applause. Nothing. Just silence. A silence so thick it became part of the moment. A silence that said everything applause couldn't say. A silence that meant the audience was too stunned to react. Then suddenly, the theater erupted into screams, thunderous applause, cheers that shook the walls. Melody, overwhelmed, covered her face with her hands and began to cry. Amanda cried too. Bruno shouted, "Brava! Brava!" Like an opera conductor who had witnessed a masterpiece. Alesha whispered repeatedly, "She's incredible." And Simon stood up slowly. The crowd noticed. The judges noticed. Melody noticed through her tears. She looked terrified and hopeful at the same time. Simon didn't speak immediately. He waited for the audience to settle just enough so his words could fill the room. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than usual. He said, "Melody, I don't think you realize what you just did. I don't know your full story. I don't know what brought you here. But what I do know is that you have something incredibly rare. What you just did, that comes from a place of real emotion, real life, real heartbreak. And those are the voices that change people. Those are the voices that stay with you forever. Voices like yours come along maybe once in a lifetime." He paused. The arena went silent again. Simon continued, "You sang with your soul. You told the truth. And when someone tells the truth like that, there's only one thing to do." Then he reached forward and pressed the golden buzzer. Gold confetti exploded into the air like fireworks. The music swelled. Melody gasped, then burst into louder tears as she dropped to her knees. Simon walked onto the stage, something he rarely does, and helped her stand. He placed a comforting hand on her shoulder and told her they were going to take care of her now. That she wasn't alone. That this was just the beginning. The audience roared non-stop. The judges clapped with pure joy. The confetti fell like a golden snowfall around Melody, who stood in the middle of the stage crying, smiling through her tears, shaking with disbelief as her entire world changed in seconds. Backstage, even the producers cried. One whispered, "This is going to be the moment of the season." And they were right. Because when the episode aired, Melody's golden buzzer broke every chart online. Her audition went viral in hours. Millions watched the moment Simon pressed that button. Millions commented. People said they had never cried so much from a singing audition. Others said Melody healed something in them. Some described the moment as spiritual. And thousands of parents wrote that they wished their own children could find that kind of courage. But what made Melody special wasn't just her voice. It was something deeper. Her story finally came out after the episode aired. She had struggled with loneliness. She had spent most of her childhood caring for herself emotionally. Music was her only escape. Singing was the only time she felt seen. The stage had been terrifying, but she stepped on it because she wanted the world to hear what she had held inside for so long. And when she sang, she didn't just sing notes. She sang her life. The world felt it. For weeks after her audition, interviews rolled in. News channels covered her. Vocal coaches praised her emotional depth more than her technical ability. Fans created edits, compilations, and reaction videos. Celebrities reposted clips of her audition. And every single time the golden buzzer moment played, people felt the same chills, the same heartbreak, the same awe. Even Simon spoke about her audition repeatedly. He said it was one of the most emotional moments of his entire judging career. He said Melody reminded him why the show exists. He said talent is important, but soul is even more important, and Melody had both. Rehearsals for the live shows began. Melody worked tirelessly. Simon personally guided her. He chose her songs carefully, focusing not on what would show off her range but what would show off her emotion. He told her the audience didn't just want to hear her voice, they wanted to feel her heart again. And she delivered. Every rehearsal, she sang with the same trembling intensity. Every run-through made crew members stop what they were doing just to listen. Even the cleaner, who had no idea who she was, once said, "That girl is going to win." But Melody wasn't focused on winning. She was focused on surviving the pressure. The sudden fame scared her. The attention overwhelmed her. But every time she felt like she couldn't do it, she remembered that golden buzzer moment, the way Simon looked at her with belief instead of doubt, and she pushed forward. When the live semifinals arrived, the pressure was enormous. This time, instead of standing alone on the stage, Melody sang with a full orchestra behind her. The moment she took her first breath, the crowd fell silent again, the same silence that had filled the room during her audition. They knew something extraordinary was coming. Her semifinal performance was haunting. Powerful. Ethereal. She didn't try to outsing anyone. She didn't try to impress. She simply told another story through her voice, a story about hope, healing, rising. And once again, she brought the judges to tears. When she finished, Simon stood before anyone else. He clapped above his head. He told her he had never been more proud. Amanda said she was witnessing a legend in the making. Alesha said Melody had a gift that the world needed. Bruno said she was born for the stage. The public vote came in. Melody won her semifinal by a landslide. She was going to the grand final. Now, the final was something else entirely. The entire country was watching. Fans filled the arena. Cameras lined every corner. The atmosphere wasn't just electric, it was emotional, tense, overwhelming. And Melody. She walked onto the stage with a calmness she didn't have during her audition. She walked onto that stage like someone who understood her purpose now. She smiled softly. She breathed slowly. And when the finals music began, she didn't look scared anymore. She looked ready. This performance was different. It wasn't small and delicate. It wasn't fragile. It was powerful. Her voice soared higher than anyone expected. She delivered each line with conviction. She hit notes she hadn't dared to hit before. The orchestra swelled behind her like a cinematic soundtrack. The lights glowed gold and blue. And the audience, the entire audience, stood for the last minute of the performance. By the end, Melody was crying. The judges were crying. Simon placed his hand on his heart and nodded at her like a proud parent. It didn't matter what anyone else did that night. Melody had already won the hearts of millions. When it came time to announce the results, tension filled the air. Host called her name first for the final two. The audience screamed. Melody covered her face again, same as her audition day. Simon mouthed, "I'm proud of you, no matter what happens." The host opened the envelope. The entire arena leaned forward. And then, Melody won. The crowd exploded. Confetti burst into the air. Melody fell to her knees, overwhelmed once again by disbelief. Simon rushed onto the stage again. He hugged her tightly. Whispered something into her ear that cameras didn't catch. Amanda joined. Alesha and Bruno clapped beside her. Melody had gone from a lonely girl who walked on stage with trembling hands, to the champion of Britain's Got Talent. And the world celebrated her. Weeks later, she performed on talk shows. She recorded her first single. She visited schools, telling kids that it's okay to feel broken, as long as you keep singing, keep trying, keep believing. She became an inspiration. A symbol of hope. A reminder that even the quietest voice can echo the loudest when it comes from the heart. But no matter how far she went, no matter how many stages she stepped on, no matter how many millions listened to her voice, nothing would ever compare to that first audition. The moment Simon Cowell pressed the golden buzzer. The moment Melody brought an entire theater to tears. The moment a star was born. The moment that will forever be remembered as Simon's best golden buzzer ever. And there you have it. The full story of Melody, the girl who turned her pain into music, her loneliness into strength, and her voice into one of the most unforgettable moments in BGT history. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most emotional auditions ever seen on Britain's Got Talent, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video so more people can relive this incredible journey. Let me know in the comments who you want me to cover next. Until then, thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the quietest voice carries the biggest message.